Today we'll be talking about the asynchronous guide for 3rd through 5th grade. If you would like a copy of this presentation, go to go.bcsd.com/G72. Today our learning intention is that we will be able to learn to navigate some resources available for our students during asynchronous learning. We'll know we are successful when we can navigate the asynchronous guide to create meaningful asynchronous learning opportunities for our students. In this session, we will access the learning guide, we will review and model supplemental tasks, and we will learn about sharing ideas with other teachers. The asynchronous learning guide contains tools that can be leveraged by a teacher to meet the needs of our students. They are divided into grade level spans, student tasks, step-by-step directions, and videos. The Asynchronous Learning Guide can be accessed on slide 9 by clicking on Asynchronous menu. Once you click on Asynchronous menu, it will take you to the guide. This is the Asynchronous Learning Guide. In it, it describes the purpose, the organization, and the support. As you can see, it is divided by grade span. TK through 2nd, 3rd through 5th, and 6th through 8th. We will be concentrating on 3rd through 5th. Hopefully you've had a chance to review the asynchronous guide. As you can see, there are supplemental tasks. The tools within this guide are a short list of digital resources that can be used for asynchronous assignments with your students. These are not mandatory, so these tasks are not mandatory, and I'm sure that all of you have tasks that you like or websites that are your favorite. You can continue to use those. These are just suggestions, and hopefully they'll make your life a little easier and save you some time. Now we are going to model some tasks. Let's see what the teacher and student steps look like. Let's take a look at Mayan. There are 4 Mayan tasks that are listed on this page. The first one is just students browsing books. And as a teacher, you can just give the students an overview of how to use the filters. There is a link to demo accounts that you can use as a teacher to go in as a student and show your students how to use the filters. There's also a video for the students that you can play for the students. The next one is students will read books in a suggested bundle. This is a link to a teacher video that shows how to create a bundle. When you think of a bundle, think of a very loose way to suggest books to your students. If you're in the classroom, often you have a bookshelf at the front of your classroom that has books that are related to maybe what you're studying at the time. The good thing about Mayan is that students don't have to wait their turn. They can all get the same book at the same time. So when you create a bundle, it gives the students a suggestion of books from you, and it will push up in a carousel, very much like Netflix or Audible. This does not assign the books to a student. There is a link to the video from the teacher side as well as the student side. One consistent piece of feedback that I've gotten from teachers lately is that they don't want to go into a lot of different platforms to track their students' asynchronous work. So, for example, if you wanted your students to read in a bundle, you may create an assignment that says, read a book in Mrs. Lopes's bundle. And then the student either has to respond with what book they read, or if they took an AR quiz on it, they may want to say what their score is. This is good just to allow the students to be able to track everything through Google Classroom. And you don't really have to worry about them being honest or not, because if you have a question about it, you can always go to that platform and track it through the platform. That is where this monitoring piece comes in. Over in the monitoring section, there's a link to the video that shows how to monitor in Mayan. And of course, if the students take an AR quiz from a Mayan book, you can also monitor that from an AR report. Now, moving on to projects. Projects might be a good option for asynchronous time. Projects sound kind of labor intensive, but they're really not. They can be as simple as just a list of books. This video describes how to assign a list of books to your students or group of students. The CNI team has created projects that align with the grade level units in ELA. This video explains how to assign those to your students. It's only a few steps. Let's take a look. The CNI team has created some projects that you could easily access in Mayan and push out to your students. To access these projects, you'll need to click on Mayan from your Renaissance homepage. If you're a teacher, you will click on Classroom. If you are support staff, you'll click on My School. As a teacher, when you click on Classroom, you'll see these tabs come up. You'll need to click on the Projects tab. To locate the CNI projects, you need to click on the cloud. Once you click on the cloud, the filters will come up. CNI has used the tag Team BCSD, so you will need to type in Team BCSD. No spaces. If you want to see all of the Team BCSD projects, you can just hit search from there. But if you want to narrow it down by grade level, go ahead and select grade level and then choose your grade. If you're a 4th grade teacher, you can make it just say 4th, or if you want to look at 3rd and 4th, you can leave it like this. Once you select your filters, hit search. As you can see, the CNI units come up. You can select a project to the corresponding unit. If you are on Unit 1B and you are a 3rd grade teacher, you can select the I and copy it to your projects. This is just additional books that accompany that particular unit. So you copy it to your projects by clicking Copy to My Projects. Once you have it copied, you can view the books by clicking on the gear. If you like the books that are in there, you can leave it as it is and you can assign it to your students. If you want to add some directions for your students, you can put the task objective. If you want to take any of the books out, you can click on Manage Books and uncheck which books you want to take out. You can also add more books by finding books right in there. You can disable the audio if you want your students to read it instead of listening to it. You can also disable the quizzes or the highlighting or any of the other tools. Once you're satisfied with the directions, you're going to click out of it and hit save. You'll notice that it comes up in your inactive projects. If you want to push it out to your whole class, simply hit assign. And then to push it out to your whole class, go to rosters and groups. You're going to select my roster and select all. And then lastly, hit apply. This will push it out to all of your students, and your students can locate the project in their project tab. Once you have that project assigned to your students, you can show your students how to find it by showing them this video that shows it from the student side, how to access the project. It's very simple. The students have a project tab and you can view that
by going to this video. You can also give your students the link to that video so that they can watch it over a couple times to make sure that they're clear about the process. Lastly, I want to talk about Myon News. Myon News is a good option for asynchronous. It's updated daily with kid-friendly news, and students really enjoy it. You can have your students just go on and read, or you could tie some questions to it. Let's take a look at the Myon News platform.
Myon News can be a good option for asynchronous, especially because it changes daily. It gives current events in kid-friendly language. So for today's issue, there's an article that contributes to Women's History Month, and it's about women in science. So if the students go to the article and click on it, the article will come up. They have some tools on the right. They can choose the language. So if they hit Hola, it changes it to Spanish. Not only does it change the print to Spanish, but it will also read it to them in Spanish and French if they speak French. So the students can also increase and decrease the font. And then if they click on the globe, it tells where the article takes place. For example, this one takes place in Cambridge, England. Some other tools are there's usually a little video about something related to the article, a few slides, and a feature that I like is it always gives an act. And for this one, it says, "There are big, big discoveries still to be made," said Bell Burnell. "So follow your interest and get busy exploring." You could just do something as simple as ask the students to respond to what that act means to them. You don't have to do anything, but like I said before, one bit of feedback that I have gotten is that teachers really like to track things in Google Classroom. So something you might want to do is ask them to even write about one thing they read in today's edition of Maya News, or you could give them some questions. Every edition of Maya News, if you go back to the edition, it has a teacher's guide, and that teacher's guide is down here at the bottom. So when you click on the teacher guide, a PDF pops up. This is what the teacher guide looks like. It shows the lexile that the articles are written at, and it also shows the questions that the students get at the end of each article. If the students answer the questions, you can run a report in Myon to see if the students answered the questions correctly. If you like these questions, you could copy them and put them onto a slide or put them in a Google Doc. There's also vocabulary for all of the articles. So as you can see, you get the questions for all of the articles. There are some other tools if you like those as well. I know that was a pretty quick demonstration of the valuable tools in Mayan, but the good news is that you can go back and watch those short targeted videos at your leisure. So if you just want to give your students a bundle, you can click on the video. If you want to um, give your students some of the CNI projects, you can click on a video. And if you want to review how to use Mayan News, there's also a video. So let's move on to the next program. Now we're going to talk about Freckle. Freckle is another program that's great for asynchronous. The reason I think it's great is because if you don't do anything from the teacher side, your students can still access it. For example, if you want your students to work on math facts, they can go on at the default level. This video shows some math number practice and or number facts and number basics for K2 students. You can also give that to students who need it that are in upper grades. You just have to adjust their dashboard. Another thing that students can practice without having to assign anything is adaptive practice. And that is vertically aligned. And so if you assign a student adaptive practice in numbers in base 10, it will give them adaptive practice based on their star level. So that's where you get your intervention. Students that need it at a lower level can practice at their level and hopefully catch up. I'm going to show you in the Freckle platform how to assign a few things. When you log into Freckle, you will see a dashboard. If you come over here to math, I'm focusing on math because BCSD has Freckle Premium for math only. You can use the ELA, but you'll be limited on the functions because we only have Premium for math. So if I click on math, I can see the different options that I have for content for my students. The adaptive the adaptive pathway is what I talked about earlier in that you can assign a pathway to your students and it will give it to them at their level depending on their star score. Targeted is going to be more your core curriculum. So if you have something that you want to create an exit ticket or a quick quiz at your grade level, that would be something that you could do on targeted. Fact practice. As I said earlier, you don't have to do anything for fact practice, but if you want your students to practice a certain domain, for example, if you're a third grade teacher and you want your students to just practice multiplication, you can change it and move the students just to multiplication if they are still on addition and subtraction. To do that, you would just click on Assign, and then you would select the students or deselect, whatever you like. And then if you just click on multiplication, you can say assign immediately or schedule it for the future. If you say assign immediately, what comes up is a title. It gives it a title automatically. You can leave it or you can change the title if you want. You can copy the link to put it in Google Classroom, or you can click Google Classroom. And once you click Google Classroom, your Google Classroom will come up and you'll select it and assign it to the class. Now, keep in mind, if the student clicks on the link from Google Classroom and they're not already signed into Freckle in another tab, it will ask for a class code, and you don't want your students to have to do that. So remind them to log into Freckle in another tab if they are going to do this. The other thing is you don't have to put it in Google Classroom, but going back to what we said earlier about teachers wanting to track everything through Google Classroom, it might be a good idea. But if you don't put it in Google Classroom, whatever you do assign will still come up in the From My Teacher area, and it will show in the tile or the backpack depending on the grade level. Another task in Freckle that could be used for asynchronous is the inquiry-based lessons. Now, the inquiry-based lessons, another task in Freckle that may be useful for asynchronous work is called Another task in Freckle that you may want to consider for some asynchronous work are the inquiry based lessons. Now, the inquiry based lessons themselves cannot be done asynchronously because there are some teacher slides as well as some review and um, topics and videos that the students need to watch. But if you front loaded the students with the lessons, then you could give them the inquiry sheet to do on their own during asynchronous. Now, typically, if you were in the classroom, the inquiry sheets would be on a PDF and you would either print those out or you could put them on Google Slides. That's just an extra step. So, the CNI team has put those inquiry based lessons, inquiry sheets on slides. And if you'd like to access them, you can access them right here where it says link to resources. Let's take a look at those. Grade level, the inquiry tasks are from grades first through eighth. Keep in mind they're pretty rigorous. They model somewhat of an SBAC performance task, so you may want to try a grade level or two down. Let's look at third grade. So, as you can see, all of these have been put on slides. These are the slides that you would assign to the student. So, it has all of the days' inquiry sheets on them. You can just assign the whole week because most of the tasks are 3, maybe 4 days, and then have them do them one day at a time, or you can break the slides apart. So here is where you would access those. That saves you a little bit of time. Like I said, keep in mind that you're going to want to front load the students with the lesson before assigning these. In using the inquiry based lessons, what you will do is you will link to this video that says teachers may introduce pre-made IBLs to students and release them to work independently or in groups. This shows the process of how to assign the IBLs to the students because you do have to assign the videos to them. I really like these because the teacher slides are pre-made, they're easy to follow, and they're actually scripted. One last thing I would like to share about Freckle is that you can update the student's coin balance. If you know anything about Freckle, you know that students love to get those coins to shop at the Freckle store. So you can use those coins as an incentive to hopefully keep your students engaged. Now, to do that, you go to your roster and when your students come up, select the gear next to their name and click on Update Coin Balance. As you can see, this student has 2,174 coins. If you wanted to add 50 coins, you would just add 50, or you could even take some away. I wouldn't recommend that because we want to do it as an incentive, but that's where you would do it. And once you type in the balance, then you would hit Update Coin Balance. Um, Mr. Danes shared with us that he offered 100 freckle coins for everybody to keep their camera on. Because at this point in the year, a lot of students are having a hard time with engagement and keeping their cameras on. So he offered that as an incentive, and he said it worked fairly well. The last program that we are going to go over is Mystery Science. As I mentioned before, we don't have time to go in depth into each program, so we're just highlighting a few. Mystery Science is very popular and engaging with the students. Let's take a look at it. Science is really easy to use. There's almost no prep, and students love it. The premise of it is students ask this guy, Doug, all kinds of questions, and he answers them, and it turns into a whole lesson. So, just going to go over this briefly and talk about the mini lessons because those are probably the easiest ones to use for asynchronous time. So if you click on mini lessons, this is based on a question that a student has asked, and it is how are pencils made? So if you click on the video, I'm not going to share the sound, but basically it shows Doug and he's talking to the student and He calls Emiliano. So basically, he talks to Emiliano and he gives some facts about writing utensils. He also poses a question. So, if you would like to assign this lesson to your students, you would simply go down and click Google Classroom. And then you click on Assign this mini lesson by clicking here on the Google Classroom. When you select your Google Classroom, you'll see that it titles how pencils are made and it also gives some suggested questions. It even gives a bonus activity. It, as a default, gives it 100 points, but you can make any adjustments necessary. The last item on the agenda that we will be talking about is where to share asynchronous ideas and where to get asynchronous ideas from other teachers. If you click on the Padlet icon, this will take you to a shared Padlet. Once you get to the Padlet, you can see that there are columns for each grade level span. If you have a great idea, you can share it simply by clicking on the plus and adding your idea either as a document, a website, etc. As you can see, there are some sample schedules. Mr. Danes, a fifth grade teacher at Hort, has a sample schedule that he has created. Another sample schedule is a fourth grade teacher at McKinley, Miss Bethany Gonzalez. Hers is set up a little differently with pictures. And lastly, there's an example schedule from Ms. Areola at Harding. She's a second grade teacher. I encourage you to go over those schedules and get some ideas. Keep in mind, these teacher schedules are made for their students and their population. So you may want to look at their schedule as a starting place, but keep in mind to tailor your schedule to the needs of your students and your population. This concludes our session for today. If you have any questions or need additional support, please feel free to contact any member of the EdTech team. Thank you for learning with us. You are appreciated and you're doing a great job.